Hello everyone, WYN here again for another tutorial on our Roblox exploiting series. Today's video we will be working with up values and specifically going through how to change an up value when it is a table. This seems to be a highly requested topic, so we'll go through it today. And it's a nice follow-up to an earlier tutorial that I've made in a series on up values in general. So if you haven't yet watched that video, please take a moment and watch that first. And with that, we'll jump right in. So before we actually get into a game and try to make this work, I first want to explain how this works more in a practical sense. And so take this example. Let's say you're looking through game scripts and you find that something that looks very similar to the code I have here on the screen. So if in the game script, module, or local script, doesn't really matter, you see a variable, a local variable defined at the top as a table, it has multiple values. So in this case, we're just going to call it Game Pass table. And it has an index associated with each of these values in the table. So this is essentially saying Game Pass with the ID of 1234 is set to false. And then the same thing for these other two Game Pass IDs. Now, this could be very promising because if there's functions that simply check if this is true, in other words, maybe you own the Game Pass, it then allows you to use the Game Pass, then that's something that we can certainly exploit. So in this case, I've made it very simple, and that'll do just that. There's a function in this game script called check Game Pass, and it takes a parameter of Game Pass ID that gets passed to it. And all it does is says if Game Pass table, which is referencing this value here above the function, and hence it's an up value, with this Game Pass ID that's being passed, so in other words, if this is true, then return true, else return false. So let's look over here for a very specific way to use this. So let's say there's a click function on some type of clicking simulator. And let's pretend Game Pass with ID 1234 gives you double clicks. So it's calling this function if check Game Pass ID 1234, which is this one right here, if that, which implies that is true, then award extra clicks, else just award a single click. So knowing that, we want to be able to modify the value in this. Now, there's other ways to do this without using up values just because of the way that the script is structured, but once again, just follow me. This is practical use. Right, so what we want to do is look at one of these functions, probably specifically check Game Pass function, and see if their up values are located in this function. And if so, try to grab the up value of this table, modify it, and then update it. So how would we do that? Well, let's copy this into an actual game, and I will show you. Actually, let me just write the code, and then I'll show you the game. So first thing we're going to do is we want to go ahead and look at for the up values within this function here, check Game Pass. So we're just going to say, we're going to loop through it. So we're going to do a for I, comma, v, in pairs. So a simple way to loop through a table. I stands for index, v is for value. Now we need to type in get up values, which is the exploits built-in function that allows you to grab up values from a function. So now it takes a parameter here of the function we want to use. So in this case, it's simply the function check Game Pass. Right, so this function is what we're going to pass to the up values here. And so for IV in pairs, get up values check Game Pass do, and that with the end statement, we're going to print both the index and the value. So if we do this correctly, if there are any up values in here, it should be printed to the screen. So let's just copy all this onto a game, which we'll be using for the actual modifying of true up values in a few minutes. Let's just paste that in there. I'm going to make the console output there. There we go. So it did find an up value. It's only a single up value, and it is a table. Now, of course, I expected that since we have this table here. So normally, you would just modify up values by using the command set up value, the function, which in this case is check Game Pass, then you'd put in the index that's associated with this up value. In this case, the index is actually the name of the table, Game Pass table. So it has to be string or numeric, so we'll put it in a single quote to make it a string. Game Pass table. And don't worry, I'll put this in a larger code editor in a minute so you can see it. Comma, and then what you want to replace it with. So here is the challenge with modifying up values in our table, is that you can't just simply do false or true. You need to actually modify what's in the table. So before we do this and try to change it, let's go back to our code editor, and I'll show you how we're going to make a copy of the table. Do that. Okay, so we're going to create a new field called local new table, and that's where we're going to store the current up value. So now that we know the very first value that's in here, the very first up value is a table, I'm going to go ahead and store that as new table equals v. So what that's going to do is take the up value and store it as our new table. All right, now that we have our new table, now we can say, let's do another for statement for iv and pairs new table do and print iv. All right, so now this should print all the values that are in that table. Let's look and try. Copy all this again. Control C, copy, go back to Roblox, they're in the editor, clear the output, execute. All right, and there they are. So we have all the Game Pass IDs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. They're all set to false currently. That's printing from the copy of the table that we stored. All right, so let's go back to our editor here, and we want to make some changes. So let's say we want this Game Pass 1, 2, 3, 4 to be true. Well, first thing that we're going to do is actually change this. We're going to make this a little bit cleaner. Instead of doing this for pairs, we're going to copy the get up values, Game Passes, just put it like that. There we go. Get rid of this. So now we have our new table. And now with that, we know the new table has a table called itself, called Game Pass table. So I want to set that to something here. So I'm going to say new table, Game Pass table. So that's indexing this table with the table name we saw earlier when we printed it out. Now I want the value 1, 2, 3, 4 equals true. All right, so now what this should do, if this works correctly, is that it will take the copy of the table we have and change 1, 2, 3, 4 from false to true. And just to make sure that works right, we're just going to go ahead and print. I'm going to copy this bit of code here. I'm going to print it before, and I'm going to print it after. So we should see it originally say false and then come back as true. This line here. All right, I'm going to copy this all again, put it back into the box here, clear this. All right, yep, so it says false because we haven't changed it yet. Then we change it to true, now it says true. Okay, so now our new table that we created, has a value of true. Now we need to get this new table into the up value for this function, Game Pass. Check Game Pass. So that's pretty easy. So now we'll just use our set up value command, pass to it the function name, check Game Pass. Then we pass to it the index of the up value. In this case, it's this table name called Game Pass table. Put Game Pass table, and then we put what we're replacing it with. So now we're going to replace it with our new table. New table. There we go. So now our old table is being replaced with our new table. And if we really want to check to make sure that worked, what we can do is run the up values again. So for IV in pairs, get up values, pass to it the function check game pass to. We're gonna go ahead and print I, B, and now we actually want to print the contents of the table itself. So for that, we could just index a table right here. So I could just do pass table. But because I want to show you what's happening instead, what I'm going to do is actually do it down here in the print command. So this is going to print this just one table value. Now I want to print everything that's within that table. So I'm going to do an inner loop. So I'm just going to do for I2 V2. So just doing the index 2 and the value 2 for I2 V2 in pairs B, which is the current iteration of our loop, do end, say print. I'm going to add a couple of dashes so we just know this is the inside table, comma, I2, comma, B2. All right, and before we do that, we should actually just, it's good practice to check if it's a table. So if type B is equal table, then here, there we go. So and maybe it'll make sense once it prints out the console. All right, so I want to do this actually 2 times. I want to print it before we set the up value, print it after, or set the up value, then print it again after we set the up value so you can see it change. So I'm just gonna add another print line here, print after. So, okay. Go ahead and copy all this again. Okay, slight misstep here. When we set the new table, we're actually supposed to put it the index of the table that we're replacing. So I forgot to leave, or I forgot to put that in, so we're gonna add that real quick. So it's called game pass table. All right, so our new tables get up values, check game pass, which is the function, and we want to store the table, which is that very first and only up value in this case, but has an index called game pass table. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of these print commands because we don't need them any longer. And once again, I have it set up here to where we're going to check the values of the up values in this table first, and then we're going to modify the up value here, and then lastly, we're gonna go back and reprint them once again to see what that looks like once they've been modified. So I'm going to take all of this back into Roblox, copy and paste it, hit execute. All right, and as you can see here, it didn't work. So let's figure out why it didn't work. So we first have, once again, our table before, right here, printing out all the values as false. And then we'd set up our up value, passing to it our new table. It's because when I deleted those lines of code, I deleted or changed where we actually set the value of the new table. So let's go back here and say new table, and what was it again? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, 1, 2, 3, 4 equals true. Gotta set that first. Okay. All right, now I'm gonna copy it again, put it back in, and you know, a lot of people ask me why don't I edit these types of typos and errors out. It's because you're gonna have these same things while you're learning to script and exploit. So just know everyone makes mistakes, it happens, and you just got to figure out where that mistake is and fix it. All right, so let's hit execute. All right, and there we go. So now they have both changed to true. I set the table value here, new table 1, 2, 3, 4. I set the up value for that. I set the up value down here, and then once again printed them again here. So now we have successfully updated our up value. So we are good. All right, now with that out of the way, we just go back to our editor. I wanted to first, once again, start the video going through a very practical explanation. However, you won't really see this as often in an actual game. So I'm going to go ahead and delete all of this, and we're going to look at an actual game and show you how this works in a real game. All right, I already wrote some of this up. So for this game, I don't know the name of it. I've already forgotten. But I found the module script. That was pretty interesting. I had a function in here called unlock game pass. Probably see it up on my screen right now. And let's go back here. Yeah, there it is. Is game pass unlocked? All right, there's a couple different variations of this function in this module script, but they have a lot of value stored in these functions. So I wanted to check to see if there were any interesting up values in these while checking if the game pass is unlocked, to see if we can modify it to trick the game at all. So first thing you want to do is require this module script. So let's go back to our code, and I've done that right here. So the path to this module script was in the workspace folder, so I'm requiring it. That's what you do with a module script. Next thing I want to do is hold a local variable for our new table that we'll be replacing the old table with. And once again, I already know that there are up values within, or tables within the up values for the function that we're targeting, so I'm going to go ahead and create that placeholder. Alright, so next, as I already showed you, we're going to simply loop through the up values. So IV in pairs, get up values. Now when you do the get up values on a function that's in a module script, what you do is you preference it by your reference to the module script, which in this case is mod. So mod dot, then the function name. So the function that we found in the script was called is game pass unlocked. Right, so now we want to get all the up values within here. And I wrote a lot of extra code down here, and I'll explain what it does right now. So first thing we're going to do is print the up values. So we're printing the index and the value. I'm also printing the type. I want to know if it's a string or if it's a number or integer, just so it's very clear to me what these main types are. Next thing I'm doing, as I showed you in an earlier example, is that if the first iteration, if one of these values in this first run is a table, then I want to go ahead and print the contents of this table out to see what's in there, see if we see anything interesting. So then that's where I create this inner loop, it's inner for loop. So once again, for the second index and the second value in pairs v, so v in this case would be a table since we just verified that, then I want to print. And I'm actually adding a couple of additional dashes so we can do easily distinguish what is a first level table and second level table. Then I'm doing it again for this iteration just in case there's another table within the table. And sometimes you'll see this up toward, I don't even know how many times, but a lot of times. And really efficient way to handle this is just to create your own utility function that scans through the table recursively. That's outside the scope of this video today, but I'm sure you can Google that and find lots of solutions and examples on how to do so. But for now, we'll just keep it easy and dirty. All right, so now we're checking if this one is a table. If so, we go into the third inner table iteration and we're printing out those values. And then we do it one more for a fourth. Now, I don't think in this example, there's going to be tables that deep. However, it doesn't hurt to have this. I just noticed my indentions are really off here for some reason. So let me fix that. I have no idea what's going on. Right. Still off here, but whatever. Let's make this run. All right, so let's see if this works. I'm gonna copy this, go back into the game, open up my console, get rid of all the other code we wrote in earlier. I have too many end statements, we'll see. Oh, nope, it worked. Okay, a bunch of stuff just printed out. So let's go through this. I'm gonna scroll to the very top first. So the very first thing it found was a table. So the up value within this function itself is a table at index 1. And inside that table, there's quite a few values. None of these seem really important. All the ones with the double dashes here are children of this first table. So we'll move on to the second index. Run service, not needed. Players, replace storage. All right, number 5 here is another table. Now in this table, there's quite a few interesting things. So there's a bunch of additional functions. And then there's a Game Pass cache table. So this one is what we'll be looking at because this is very interesting. And so from here, this must be the Game Pass IDs. So we see this one, we see one below it. There's multiples of them. And they're tables themselves. And within them, they have a lot of different options. So let's concentrate on price. So this first one that ends in 652 has a price of 999 Robux. We'll see if we can modify that. Okay, so once again, we'll need to understand what levels deep this is. So let's look at this again. So in the very first value, in the up value is index 1 was a table. That's not it. It's down here. Index 5 is the one that we're after. So index 5 is a table that in itself has another table that we want to target. So remember that index 5, and then the table within index 5 is called Game Pass Cache. That's what you want. So I'm going to go back to our code window here. I'm sorry, it's in just driving. That's good. Okay, so let's go ahead and take this here. Get up values, module script is Game Pass unlocked. We're gonna hit remember our new table, which we declared up top here. New table equals get up values. Mod is Game Pass unlocked. Remember it was index 5. I'm gonna go back to the game to remember what table in index 5 called Game Pass Cache. Back. See code. Game Pass Cache. Alright, so now we have our new table set. Now, we could do a few things. We could specifically look for one of the game passes to modify, or we can just loop through them all and change all of them real quick. So the price is $9.99. They're all varied. So let's just go ahead and just change all the prices. So we're going to update this new table. So we're going to say for IV in pairs, new table, and V. Alright, I'm going to copy this, bring it over to our screen here, clear that out. I'm going to delete this. Just leave our module script declaration, our new table, paste it in, execute, table expected. Forgot to put it's around Game Pass Cache. There we go. All right, those are all those Game Pass tables. So you can see them 193, blah, 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 for all of these. Now we know all of these have a value called price. So let's go back here. Once again, what I forgot to do this time was put quotes once again over X for Game Pass Cache because the index is a string. String values, you need to put them in quotes unless you're indexing them directly with a dot. Okay, so now I know that there's a value called called price within each of these tables. So I'm just going to say v dot price, not price equals 1. Set it to 1. Alright, copy this. I'm going to print it out before and after we do it to see. Alright, they're all set to 1. So we have all of our prices now set to 1. Let's go back to the code here. So now our new table's created. We've updated all the game passes now to only cost 1 Robux from whatever they cost before. The next thing we need to do is go ahead and change this So we need to go ahead and set the up value. So I have that here. I'm just going to retype it out. So it's set up value. Now remember the function name is up here. So it's mod is Game Pass unlocked. All right, and let's go get rid. So once again, we're referencing our module script, the function. This is the first. Yep, this is the first attribute that needs to be passed to set up values. Next thing is the index. In this case, it's index number 5. So we're going to put 5, and we're going to replace it with new table. All right, and before we do that, let me just run back to the game. Actually, let's go ahead and just copy this code. It's really this one line. Back here, edit. Before I run it, I want to show you the game passes. So let's click on shop. You can see that they are all $999, looks like. Okay, so let us run it. Go back, refresh. Now, there we go. All the game passes are now set to 1 Robux. Well, at least in this GUI they are. It probably wouldn't actually work, but that wasn't the purpose of the video. Alright, so in summary, when you are trying to modify, when you find an up value, which is a table, and you're trying to modify it, you first need to create a copy of that entire table. Then modify the copy of your table, change the values to what you like, and then you just replace the entire table with that modified version. Alright, I know this may have been a little bit over the top. If you have questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below or look me up on Discord. I'll be happy to help you out. Once again, this is WYN. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. Take care.